Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Scorpio for July 2016. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. Check out my blog. Also, I have 2 courses enrolling in July, my Astrology Apprenticeship program, which takes a small, intimate group of fellow astrology zealots on this amazing journey with me into themselves, into astrology. And also my Creating Successful Online Business program to help you be free of your geographical work. If you'd like to do that and expand beyond it, check that out. We'll be enrolling in July as well. And while you're there, sign up for my free email newsletter and become part of my community. So what's going on in the month of July? This is a time to act, a long waited for time to act. If you've been watching my horoscopes or following the energy of the times, we have had a massive cloud of retrogrades. Everything has been about going backwards, resting, doing things not involving launches, not involving moving forward. And now we have this second window of the year open to do things. So I'm going to talk about the reasons why I feel like this month is a time to act a little bit later. First, I want to talk about something specific to Scorpio this month. So when I look at the picture of the month for each sign, I look to see where there's a pileup of short-term energy. That's what makes this time different from a month from now, etc. These planets that move very quickly, like the sun and the new moon and the Mercury and Venus, etc. These planets move very quickly. So wherever they're clustered at any given time, there's like a strong focus on that field of experience for that placement. So I break down each sign into the early, middle, and late degree placements because the chart for the early degree placement looks very different than the chart for the late degree placement, and the timing is staggered quite a bit. So the early degree placements are all of the October born Scorpios through like November 2nd, or if you're watching for your rising sign, 0 through 9 degrees. The middle degree placements are like November 3rd through around the 12th, or 10 to 19 degrees. And the later degree placements are around the 13th of November through the end of the sign, or 20 to 29 degrees. If you want to find out what your rising sign is, you can do a search for free birth chart online and look to see what sign is at the 9 o'clock position. Like if it were a clock, if the wheel, the astrology wheel were a clock, look at what's at the 9 o'clock position and then what degree it's at, the number is right next to it. That's your rising sign in the degree. And I think it's a good idea to watch the report for your sun sign and for your rising sign because they each give a different dimension of your astrological picture. It's kind of like if you have a house with windows on this side and then windows on that side, and the view out each of those windows is totally different, but it's in the same house, but they're equally true at the same time. That's what it's like to look into a different dimension of your experience by looking for sun sign and rising sign. So, for early and some middle degree placements coming soon for the rest of you, there is this strong flow of energy in your 9th house. The sun, the new moon, Mercury, Venus are clustered in this house of the big picture. This energy is like the most expansive energy. It's like looking at everything from a cloud. I always liken Sag energy to being on a cloud and looking at a picture from the top. You can see so much more about it than someone like in a town that you can see. So let's say a town has a water supply and the water dries up and then they freak out because they don't know what's going on and maybe they think the gods are punishing them. But if you talk to the wise person on the mountain who can see the whole picture, they can say, well, about 3 miles up, there's a beaver that made a dam. And if you break up the dam, then the water will flow back to the town. But you can't see the solution sometimes when you're right in the midst of the problem. You don't have the right perspective. So this is the theme and the message for Scorpio now. Scorpio energy can be so transfixed on something, and that's for better and worse. My beloved is a Scorpio, so I get to, and has a lot of Scorpio in his chart, so I get to see this, we really learn about this energy. And I'm a Sag, so it's very different, but I've gotten to really understand what it's like from watching this. And so you all can get so focused on something, and it's right here, that you could miss all of everything right there. Sometimes that's really positive and helpful, and you need to have that trait to pull together certain things. But This is a time when, for the early degree placements and coming soon for the rest of you, it's a time to open up to a creative solution that might not be as readily available to you if you're transfixed on something right in front. Now, for the rest of you, you have this congregation of energy in your 8th house, which is your place. You know, this is like the things of all Scorpio are in the 8th house. So there's a big focus on deep relationships, inheritances, spousal money, family money, collaborators, venture capital, deep emotional connections, esoteric topics, psychology, mysteries. There's a strong focus there. So, you know, you might find that you're really interested. Sometimes when there's a lot of energy here in this 8th house, you know, people will want to go crazy with mystery novels. And if you're a Scorpio, maybe you like that anyway. But there's extra energy here for that. So, but then like the 9th house would be like Under the Tuscan Sun, you know, like that kind of book. So those are the energies that you're working with for the shorter term. The 8th house also has to do with the like debt and credit. So credit cards, borrowing money, loaning money, buying a house, things like that. And since this is a really nice time to act, for reasons I'll get more into later, you have an open window, like if you need to get a loan or you want to put an offer in on a house or something like that. So you might find that you have credit, your credit expanded. I have a Scorpio friend of mine who is an absolute, well, she's a priestess, you know, she's just an amazing woman. And she has been talking very much lately. Her name is Ali Shanti, also known as Alexis Neely. And she's been talking so much about how you can use access to credit to create the life of your dreams. That borrowing money would seem from some people to, you know, be taboo. We don't want to be in debt, etc. But she talks about this. She's talking about this a lot lately. You can see her website at eyeswideopenlife.com or eyeswideopen.com. So that's, you know, things involving how you can use 8th house things to fuel your dreams. Sometimes what you need is just right next to you. You're just either afraid to ask or you don't think to ask, you know? So this is a good time to figure out what kind of resources you need to have available to you to do the things you want to do for the bigger picture, and then take the action on accessing those resources. So a longer term transit has to do with Jupiter. And Jupiter is the great expander. It's the bringer of luck. It's the bringer of benevolence and growth and opportunities. And it has been very sleepy until May. And now, you know, for the rest of May, June, and now into July, Jupiter is at full steam. But because Mercury and Mars had been retrograde, it was like starting to spark things, but you didn't have everybody on board. But now in July, you got Jupiter direct, you got Mars direct, you got Mercury direct. And so it's like everything that Jupiter was trying to do where it was, it's like it has agreement from the other planets to say, hey, okay, let's do this thing. Something else cool about where Jupiter is in the sky right now is that it's right next to North Node. North Node is a placement. If you look at it in a natal chart, it's actually one of the first things I talk about in every reading because I think it's one of the most important things, placements in a chart. The North Node tells you your area of highest expression in this lifetime, your areas of highest expression in this lifetime, what you're supposed to do, what your dharma is, what you're here to do, what your destiny is, and or your highest destiny if you choose to accept it and go that way. So the energy of North Node is very much embodying this energy. So when you have it in transit, it's talking about the global field of experience that there are keys for each of us to take in that area to go along our individual paths, and also where we're collectively going as humanity moving forward, hopefully in conscious evolution. That's what I think that we're doing. I think that anyone who chooses to accept that, that's the ship we're on. So Jupiter and the North Node together have more power, and with Jupiter being direct, it enhances this. So for early and some middle degree placements, the 11th house is what's being focused on. And the 11th house, this is the house I call the Deepak Chopra house. It's the house of the bridge, the connector. You know, it's the community. It's the, and that could be a community within your geographical location or the world communities. It's the energy of groups and teams and organization and humanitarian efforts and friends and acquaintances and social media and internet-based projects. Anything with the internet is there as well. Creative genius, inspired ideas, technology. They're all in the 11th house. So if you have anything like that going on with what you're trying to do or what you are doing, Jupiter is expanding that for you. The rest of you still have Jupiter, or you're going to have that coming soon. The rest of you still have Jupiter in your 10th house. You've got some luscious last moments of Jupiter expanding your career and work and life purpose so that you can bring what you're bringing in a bigger way. When Jupiter leaves a house, the gifts don't necessarily leave either. You just don't have as much focus there. It's like a seed planting type of energy. And if you've ever been around anyone with strong Sag energy, because Jupiter rules Sag, so there's a similarity here. I'm a Sag, so it's kind of like a frolicsome seed planting. If you imagine like a little fairy spreading seeds all over, infinite possibilities and opportunities to come. That's what Jupiter is like. So Jupiter spreads all these seeds. And then over the 12-year cycle that follows wherever it was just leaving, you have that 12-year cycle for all those seeds you planted to grow. So just because they don't sprout when Jupiter is there, it doesn't mean that they won't. It just means that your time for focusing on planting seeds there is now moving to another division of your field of experience, So that's what's up with Jupiter. Those are the things specific for Scorpio. Now I want to get more into why July is such an important time to act and place it in the scheme of 2016 in one of these 3 windows that we have to act. This is the second one of 3, so I'll talk about that more now. So I call this month Sugar and Spice because the way that the energies of Cancer, which are like smooth and sweet, come together with the energies of Leo, which are spicy, it reminds me of a recipe, a favorite recipe that I put together myself called Sexy Peach Pie. I haven't talked about my Sexy Peach Pie in a while. I think it's been years since I've mentioned this. But the month just feels like that to me because there's honey and the peaches in the pie, and that's like the sweet, sultry Cancer energy. And then I put cayenne pepper in it, enough to notice. And that is the Leo, the spice, and so this is the overriding energy of the month. One of the most important things to know about this month for everyone is that this is a time to act, unless of course your intuition says something otherwise, because you always have to have your intuition supersede what general energies might be. But this is the first month since March that we don't have influence from Mercury retrograde. Mercury's retrograde phase long past, and we don't have that to look at until August 10th when the shadow period starts again. And Mars has gone direct as of June 29th. So we are still in the shadow period of Mars retrograde, which means that Mars, which rules your oomph, your zest, your get up and go, how you use your energy, Mars is still a little sleepy. But it's direct nonetheless. So if you have been waiting since March to launch a bunch of things like I have, July is a wonderful time to do that. It's not as clear in some ways as the last 3 weeks of October, the whole month of November, and just the beginning several days of December, because that next window of time for action is when we don't have any personal planet retrograde influence or in shadow period. And that period of time, October, November, December, like once we're about a week into October, the rest of October, November, and the beginning of December, is the first time in the entire year of 2016 that we don't have influence from a personal planet being retrograde. Personal planets are the ones that are closest to us. So specifically, we talk about Mars and Venus and Mercury because those are the ones that go retrograde. So you have a window of time here to act, and I have 3 reasons why I feel like this is a time to act unless you're intuitively led to do your launches in the fall, in which case that would be fine too. The first is because we're not having to deal with Mercury retrograde. The second is because Mars is sleepy, but Mars is direct. The third is because there are amazing aspects this month. There are just so many glorious aspects. Many of them are trines. Trines are 120-degree angles, which are considered to be the most favorable in astrology as far as smoothness and easiness and flow. So we've got trines between personal planets, which last like a couple of days. And then we have trines between a personal planet and some outer planets, and those last, more than that, like maybe a week or so. And then we still have a carryover from the big dog trine from last month, the last week in June, where Jupiter and Pluto had their final convergence. They've been dancing in and out of this configuration since fall of 2015. So you still have Jupiter and Pluto, these outer planets. When the outer planets move into any kind of convergence, the effects of that connection last for a longer period of time because these planets take longer to move. So they're kind of just like locked in a configuration. And even though the most powerful time of the energy has passed, it's just recently passed and you're still very much feeling it. So trines on all levels. There's a couple of dicey spots this month, one on July 11th and one on July 16th. Both could possibly be jarring aspects with Uranus. So you kind of expect the unexpected around those times, jolting news, jolting information that comes in. But the predominating energy of the month is really smooth, time for action, time to move forward. Another day to pay attention to, or the days around this day, is July 19th, when we have the full moon at 27 degrees of Capricorn. Full moons bring fullness, completion, fruition. Sometimes something comes in that you've been hoping for, or something wonderful happens so that you're emotional in a happy way. But sometimes the emotions are stressful, or stress or drama. So the energy is focused around Capricorn, and Capricorn rules father figures, authority figures, your work, your career, your life purpose. So there's possibility that a lot of smiles and recognition could come in from this fullness, but there's also the possibility of attention being brought to a work issue or, something that's been pending, that's been stressful. If you have anything with a father figure, with an authority figure, with someone at work, especially an authority figure situation at work, my recommendation is to work out the charge around that situation as much as possible before the full moon. Sometimes full moons bring things that we could not have anticipated, and it's just kind of like, what? Where did that come from? But sometimes it's like the coming to a head of something that's been pending. So if you know that every time you see a certain person at work, there's like a bad energy between you, or that you get irritated or stressed when you see them, you can do energy before the full moon to work it out within yourself. And one of the best tools that I have found to do this, and it works powerfully, I've done this at workshops where people who don't know anything about the book I'm going to recommend did this exercise and they had amazing effects. It's from a book called The Marriage of Spirit by Leslie Temple Thurston with Brad Laughlin. And these are wonderful people, and this book is amazing, amazing spiritual tool. The exercises in section 2 give you this way to work out a problem that's on your mind, where it's like a mental exercise, but then it's also a spiritual exercise. And you'd be surprised at what you can clear on your own without even interacting with someone. So the more you can do that before these points of fullness, the easier possibly they could be. So at the end of the month, we've got a series of nice aspects with the planet Uranus, bringing creativity and genius and surprises that will likely be positive. The ones on the 11th and the 16th are those kind of unwelcome surprises usually. But when that planet is in a positive aspect, usually it's like something comes from the blue that's pretty cool. So something that is going on, that is pending for us to be discussing again, that I'm just going to bring up now, even though it doesn't actually go direct until August, is Saturn in Sagittarius. Saturn moved into Sagittarius and started, and this was last year, or actually at the end of 2014. This has been ongoing, and then it moved forward, and then it moved backwards, back into Scorpio, and so it's been going on. But since March, Saturn has been retrograde. And when it's in retrograde, it's more working on things in the backdrop. But then once it moves forward, which will happen in August, it's time to start bringing those things back into the forefront. So here are the two things I recommend involving Saturn and Sagittarius. The first is to understand that Saturn in Sag wants to help you bring about your big dreams into reality. Saturn is the taskmaster. Sag is the big thinker. They're not in an easy aspect with each other generally, or in a resonance with each other, but they can be very helpful to each other because they provide this important counterbalance. So whatever big dreams, big goals, destiny, something that just seems maybe even unreachable. Like if someone asked you, what is it that you really would like to do if you had all the resources and the wherewithal to do it? Those kind of big dreams. Saturn wants to help you in the time that it's in Sagittarius to create those big dreams. But what Saturn's going to say you have to do is to work hard and to be disciplined and to get efficient with your energy. That's a higher version of the energy of Capricorn. The lower vibration can be just kind of addicted to work and work for the sake of itself. But the higher vibration of Capricorn, which Saturn rules, which is why it's involved here, is that it wants you to work smarter. And this is a theme that I've been talking about for a while, and I'm going to keep talking about it because this is part of our evolution if we choose to accept it, where we work smarter instead of harder. We might also work a little harder, but we wind up working smarter. So if you figure out the dream, get clear about it, then make a timeline about what would have to happen in order for you to get there, and then break it down into measurable steps. So if you want to be a filmmaker, right, you would have to first get a good camera, right? Maybe you need some training. Maybe you need to be able to take trips to the places where you want to do filming. Maybe you need to have a screenplay. Maybe you need to, whatever it is. So get the big dream in your mind. Think about the things that you would need for creating that, and then keep breaking those down into what you have to do every day to get to the big dream. And that's what Saturn wants to help you do. So here in July, right before it's about to go direct, be thinking about this so that you can have your plan ready. So these are the general energies of the month for everyone. And if you would like some assistance in using these energies and the ones that are more specific to your chart, which I can't see in the general horoscopes, then check out my website, anniehelpsyou.com. You can see more about my personal coaching. You can also sign up for my free email newsletter and become part of my community and get the write-ups that I talk about with more detailed explanations of the aspects and what planets are involved, etc. And definitely check out, if you're interested in learning astrology and you resonate with how I teach, my Astrology Apprenticeship program will be enrolling in July, and my Creating Successful Online Business program will be enrolling in July. And I have lots of self-development programs on my website as well, and my blog. So go to anniehelpsyou.com, and I hope you have a wonderful month. See you next month. Bye.